Greetings, everyone. P. Pardo here from Comic Book Users. Welcome to another look at a very cool Warren Publishing Group, or Warren Magazine, classic Warren horror magazine from the old days, the classic days, right? This is Eerie, number 30. Look at that. The spirit of Aman Tut returns from the crypt to terrorize a suburban family. Oh no! Warren Magazine, 64 illustrated pages of terror and suspense, only 60 cents. And of course, do you recognize who drew that cover art? You should. He was pretty prolific over the years, none other than Basil Gogos. Yes, that guy. That's right. All right, so this is from 1970. It's in great shape for 1970, is it not? Look at that. I mean, just in perfect shape. I actually bought like a whole bunch of these Eerie and Creepy and Vampirella magazines a couple months ago, and I'm amazed at how good condition they are in. And I didn't pay that much for them. They were pretty inexpensive anyway. So here we've got editor and publisher James Warren, of course. Associate editor Archie Goodwin. Yes, that Archie Goodwin. Contributing editors Bill Parente, Nicola Cuti. Cover Basil Gogos, like I said. Artists in this issue Ken Barr, Frank Bolli, Pat Boyette, Carlos Garzon, Jerry Grandinetti, Jack Sparling, and Tom Sutton. And the writers in this issue Ken Barr, Pat Boyette, Nicola Cuti, Don Glutt, Gordon Matthews, Doug Mensch, yes, that Douglas Mensch, and Steve Skeets. All right, so first of all, we got the Eerie Monster Gallery, which with the giant Bem, which means bug-eyed monster. And that is drawn by, it almost looks like Steranko, but that is actually drawn by Dan Atkins. Okay, so here we've got a whole bunch of tales to go over. We'll run through them fairly quickly for you. This is actually one of the better issues that I've read. Some really good stories in here. So, of course, we open up with the Letters to Dear Cousin Eerie. Always fun. And then we have the first story, which is called The Entail. So here we see this guy riding out his horse in a storm in a very strange place. Art and story by Pat Boyette, or Boyette. He sees a guy outside, and he's like, why are you out in the storm? You should get out. You shouldn't be here in this town during the storm. You shouldn't be here at all, right? He's like, but I have an appointment to see such and such. Who's he got to see? I am here at the urging of your benefactor, Baron Riga Vilka. Turn back, stranger, for there's only death for you here. He goes, then your safety demands that you reach the village before sunset. You must hurry, sire, right? So finally he gets, another guy says, get off the street, you fool. The hour is upon us. And goes, since you are so vocal in my interest, I assume your door is open to me. Get in, man, now. And please have someone see to my horses. He goes, your horse? Can I make you understand the sun has set and the Gorms are on the prowl? Who are the Gorms, you might ask? Well, those are those interesting-looking characters right there. Right? There's three of them. So the Gorms are out and about. Everybody's locked up in the village. And he's like, Gorms? He goes, wards of Baron Vilka, degenerate, deformed triplets, sired, some say, by the Baron himself. In any case, the Baron has deemed them the night, and food must be placed before each house for you see, the Gorms are gluttons. They consume every edible thing in sight. And at this moment, the prince's regal composure is shattered by racking shrieks of pain. No, my horse! No, no! Oh, my dear man, I can't imagine what insanity has led you to this village. So they wait it out. Okay. So while all this is happening, and then the next morning, as you can see up top here, there lies the skeleton of the horse. There's nothing left. So he's like, I got to find out what's going on. I got to get to this Baron's house here. So he goes, dawn was no less ominous. The sky hung low, and the sickening remains of his prince's horse presented a promise of dread. It is not my place to offer advice, but I must urge you not to acknowledge the Baron's invitation. You're correct. It is not your place. So here, in the acrid stench of decay that seems to scream, retreat, the prince finds he cannot deny the strange summons to his vile barony, He shows up at the house. He goes, I am Prince Eric von Raffen, and Baron Riga Vilka is awaiting you. So once he gets there, he meets up with the Baron. He goes, "You are here to receive a gift that only I can give you. I offer you the throne. I am going to make you a king. Impossible. Under the law of succession, I would have to live 150 years. And so you shall. So you shall." So what is it that is up his sleeve there, right? Baron's kind of an interesting looking character. Look at him with the bald dome and the little tuft of hair in the back, the long earring, the big long nose, the goatee. Kind of a creepy looking guy, right? So he says, "In fact, your handsome face and brilliant mind will now exist forever. In turn, you shall guarantee the borders of my precious Zagralof. For 300 years, we have known contentment here because we have been able to isolate ourselves. But now, civilization is closing in on us. I need the bulwark of a powerful eternal king to ensure our continued solitude. And you would make me this king, this eternal king? I have already done. In your wine, a potion of perpetual life. Your mind, your faithful features can never be destroyed. I shall engineer those assassins necessary to place you on the throne, and your gratitude will give me the protection that I demand. Ha ha, Baron, I find you an insulting madman who thinks my greed will permit a belief in a life-giving potion that cannot exist. Further, since you have already given me the magic potion, why should I encumber my assured title reign with an absurd little treaty born of the folly of your Slavic trust? Nein, my dear Baron, you have caused me to make a miserable journey. You have offended my stomach with a vile wine, and you have attempted to play me for a fool. I now give you my pledge that should fate ever afford me the throne, my first act shall be to burn this depraved place. Goodbye." "No, you can't leave. Stop him." Of course, that leads the Gorms to come out. They, of course, attack him, start eating him. The Baron's like, "No, I will not be cheated. I have given you eternal life, and you will give me protection, if not as my sovereign, then as my scarecrow." So basically, he's going to put him up on a stick out front, bones and all. You are the scarecrow. You're going to protect this land and this property. And then Cousin Eerie says, "So even today, Zakharov does not appear on any map, or Zakharolov does not appear on any map, which is just as well because those confounded screams would just wreck the tourist season." Screams of the scarecrow. All right. Next up, we got a little tale called Mirror Mirror. Okay, as you can see, all different artists working on all these, so every tale looks a lot different. This one is art by Frank Boll, story by Nicola Cuti, and this is a whole story about the mirror with the creature behind the mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, you know. So here you have this guy and his girlfriend or wife talking about a portrait. You got in a little prologue here, you got this older gentleman who is being attacked by a creature that comes out of the mirror. It's actually, the both characters here know each other, so here, talking about a mirror that they inherited. There you have this little creature that comes out. The creature comes out of the mirror. They think they catch the creature. As it turns out, they do not. Here, it's almost like the mirror is like a portal, right? Because here it throws a magazine at the mirror, goes right through. He's reaching through there. So all of a sudden they're finding out that there's some really, really wild stuff going on with this mirror. Something that they need to figure out a way out of this mess. Then they find themselves in a room full of these kind of mirrors, right? So there's some kind of entity here that's following these two around. So here, in the room full of mirrors, the creature comes out, starts attacking them, goes back into the mirror, so they're trying to smash all the mirrors to find out which is the actual one. Once they find the one, right, they find they can't smash it, so what does he do? He gets a can of paint, and let's just paint over the mirror and imprison that nasty little bugger in there forever. Okay. Kind of a silly story. This one's pretty good. This is called Life Species. So here we go into the future, and we have I guess it is, yeah, so this is an alien race, I guess, or another race of humans from another planet who come upon the Earth many, many, many years in the future, or at least you don't really know it's the Earth, right? So here they come on their rocket ship, and they land, and they start looking at all the rubble and things that are around, and they find something buried under the rubble that they start talking about it like it's an actual like skeleton of some large reptilian creature, right? So they're like, oh, look, we found the bones, and if it appears we found the eye, and look, there's the digestive system and all this kind of stuff. But they don't really show you much of anything. They just kind of talk about it, right? Look, an eye still intact after all these centuries. Remarkable preservation, but it does seem to be the creature's visual apparatus and almost insect-like in appearance and round, right? Then they say, look, we've found the digestive tract and intestines. They seem to be petrified. And then they talk about how it looks like it only ate vegetation, because all there is on the inside, there's no food matter. There's just like what appears to be water or some kind of liquid, right? So, but there's no teeth. The jaw, they found the jaws, but there's no teeth. It's like with such gaping jaws, it should have easily been able to consume almost anything in one bite. Look, I believe it's part of its hide. Notice it seems thick and tough like that of a reptile, but no reptile's hide was ever this tough. And look at the skin. It's partially rotted from being buried so long, but it still gleams in spaces. It certainly must have been beautiful, right? So they look, whatever, and they're like, it looks like the whole race just committed suicide in here, whatever, all these kind of creatures and whatnot. Let's get out of here. We're not finding anything of use here. Let's go to another planet. So they hop back in their rocket ship and they take off. And lo and behold, this skeletal creature that they were looking at was none other than a Volkswagen bug. It looks like it was one of a kind. Yes, indeed, the Volkswagen beetle, Volkswagen bug, was indeed one of a kind, right? So that's the skeleton they were looking at. Makes sense, right? Hope the story doesn't bug you as much as it tires me, but it's something to think about. Don't beetle your head into a wall worrying about it. Space spook buffs. All right, so we got... more fan letters. Okay. Here we go. Werewolf. This is my favorite story in the whole issue. Art and story by Ken Barr. So here, going back a ways, right? Here you have the two kind of gypsies, grandmother and then granddaughter. Austria, 1867. They're going through the woods on a trail. They see a guy on the side of the road, kind of hurt, passed out. So the granddaughter convinces the grandmother to bring him onto their horse and buggy there and to try and take care of him, or, get him to a doctor or whatever. And the grandmother's like, no, we should not be doing this. We should leave him there. What if he dies? We're going to have to explain. We don't know what's going on with him. But then you see the guy. All right, so his name is, what is his name here? Eric Feldman, okay? But darkness brings no rest to Eric Feldman. Strange, tormented dreams disturb him, and his cries of terror ring in their ears as he remembers. So he's remembering being attacked by a wolf. All right. Grandmother says, I beg of you, Therese, no good will come of helping him. Let us abandon him here now. But the wolves of the forest will devour him. He is already cursed. I saw in his hand the mark of the pentagram. He has been chosen by Satan himself. The very air trembles with the nearness of evil. I have seen many things, and we must protect ourselves if we must be helped. Then we must continue our journey. All right. But of course, they continue on with him. And then, of course, someone lumbers up behind them. Leathery bat wings hover, dissolve, and take a more sinister shape. So, you destroyed my wolf, farmer. Then you know that he who survives the bite of the were-beast will himself become a wolf. I, Cargos, will in time summon you, and you will obey. And who, of course, is Cargos? He is a vampire. That's right. That is right. So here, as Eric starts to get better, Cargos shows up. He summons him. Eric shows up to Cargos, and as he does so, he turns into a werewolf and then goes on a rampage in the town. While he does so, Cargos goes to Therese's room to drink her blood. Next day, we're having a funeral for Therese, right? So all the gypsies and whatnot. Eric finally shows up after his night of mayhem, night of terror. How could this have happened? What happened? One of the constables is like, you look upset, my friend. Did you know her? He's like, yes, I knew her, but I can't tell you anything. So the constable's like, we need to keep an eye on this guy. He knows a little more than he's saying. So, of course, that night, they decide to follow him. He gets summoned by Cargos once again, and turns into a werewolf. Look at that werewolf down there, right? Saliva dripping all over the place. Awesome. Can you tell I love werewolf stories? All right, but now he has a feeling. Eric, even though he's turned into the werewolf here, he has a feeling that Kargos was responsible for the death of Therese. So he goes deep in the tortured memory of the man-beast, a vague stirring, as if in a dream. He holds the poor drained body of Therese. In the old mine, the master awaits. So the Kargos, the vampire, is in this mine, right? And the werewolf, Eric the werewolf, Feldman, I sense his fury in his very soul. He knows. Back, I command. I am your master. Back, go back. The werewolf attacks the vampire. Battle of the century here. Vampire versus werewolf. Here you have a tool, a sickle, right? Or a pike, whatever you call it. Drawing a blank on the kind of tool that is. Anyway, it's sticking up from the ground, and back drives the werewolf. The werewolf drives the vampire back onto the spike, kills him. The vampire dies, been impaled, turns into a skeleton. With that, Eric reverts to human form. My God, he came here to destroy the vampire. The vampire. Okay. But even though he is no longer under the power of the vampire, he still has been bitten by a werewolf. So the last things. Eric nods, and later, as the fresh, clean air from the mine entrance dispels the dark shadows from his mind, he walks again a man among men. And so, my lycanthropic lovelies, a werewolf no longer a werewolf. Eric can put away his claw and fang past at last, until, aghast, he faces the next full moon. So the whole moral of the story is that even though you killed the vampire who is controlling your movements, you are still a werewolf, and with the next full moon, you know what's going to happen. Right? Okay, so let's take a look at some ads here. Always very cool ads in these Warren books of other issues and things like that. Here you have a tale called In Close Pursuit. This is an interesting, fast-moving little story, art by Jerry Grandinetti, story by Gordon Matthews. This is all of about a guy who inherits a fortune because he basically screwed over lots of people. Okay, there's the dude right there. And now he inherited a fortune based on some really bad stuff that he did. So he's, and somehow, so basically what he did was he had gotten funding to build an office building, but he decided to cut corners big time and build it on the cheap, and then keep all the additional money, right? So he knew something was going to happen to this building, because he built it on the cheap, kept the additional money, and then the building eventually collapses and kills like thousands of people, and he gets all the insurance money. So now he's rich. Never needs to work again. And so far, all the investigations that the authorities have done have not found out that he's kind of the one who was responsible for the building falling, right? While he's like all happy that he's now a rich man, inherited this fortune, he's really paranoid and feels really guilty, right? His guilt, can kill some people, right? So here he is walking home after, the latest round of investigations that turned up nothing. So he's like, no big deal. So he's walking in the rain, and he sees this guy in an overcoat and a hat, and everywhere he goes, he sees him behind him, and he's thinking, is it the cops following me? Is it who's following me? Is it someone out for revenge? So this whole story is this paranoid guy walking through the rain throughout the city, and the same dude is behind him, and he's like trying to, what's all this stuff that's going through his head? Who could have hired? Is this a killer? Is he has someone out for revenge? Someone who died in the building collapse? Is it one of their family members? Is it an assassin they hired? So he's totally getting paranoid. And every time he looks back, he's still there. So he continues to go, and he's playing in his mind. So here you have depiction of the building that crashes and all the people dying, and now he's seeing all the people being buried and in the rubble and dying, and he's like, oh my God, and this guy is still following me, and he's like, he's terrorized, right? So what does he do? He goes up. He's trying to get away, so he's freaking out. So he climbs up a scaffold, like a ladder, and goes up this building because he still sees a guy down below. And then of course he goes up, climbs up to a balcony, slips, falls, splat, dead. So then the next scene, you see the guy who was following him. walks into his house. Marge, I'm home. Takes off his rain jacket and hat. She goes, oh, hello, dear. Anything happened today? And he goes, no, nothing. Well, wait, yeah. On the way home from work here, there was this guy that kept looking at me like I was a ghost. He finally ran off down an alley. Far as I could tell, he must have been some kind of a nut. And then Uncle Eerie says, perhaps, but Henry Fellows isn't much of anything right now. So there you go. So someone who is really guilty of something bad, but is really paranoid and grief-stricken about, he feels really guilty about what he did deep down inside, allowed something like some guy who was just going the same direction as him to totally freak him out. And now he winds up dead. Probably all for the better, right? Because he was an evil man, right? So, but in actuality, he was afraid for nothing, right? So the guilt was getting to him. All right, last but not least. Actually, no, there's two more stories, sorry. Here you got more movie masks. These are awesome. Here you got the story of Aman Tut. So here, again, kind of like the classic mummy tale. You get a bunch of explorers and archaeologists who stumble upon a mummy, okay, and riches and stuff, an old mummy's tomb. And what do? They open it up. The mummy's still in there. But now, of course, you know how it goes when you open up a mummy's tomb, right? You get cursed. So here, what do? They know they're probably doing the wrong thing, but they go and they bring the mummy back to the museum, the return of Aman Tut. So here you have the main scientist, his wife and child, Aman Tut, the Fourth Dynasty, trying to explain to his son, about the whole history of mummies and whatnot. So here, that night in the museum, right, get the security guard. All of a sudden, meanwhile, the main guy, the main scientist, the husband here, he's kind of worried. He's like, you know what? Maybe we should not have disturbed the mummy's tomb. Maybe, did we do the right thing? Because you know what the old legends of the mummies are, right? So that night, of course, the mummy, because this particular mummy was a famous sorcerer and magician. And now, of course, he wakes up. What does he do? He wakes up, kills the night guard. Now he's like, with my power of sorcery, I'm going to go find all those people that brought me out from the tomb, and I will have my revenge on them. So he goes, and off he goes, one by one, finding all the guys that disrupted his sleep. And eventually he makes his way to our main character, who, of course, middle of the night, in bed. So I'm going to kill both you and your wife, little Tommy, or whatever his name was, I'm sorry, Chris. Here's his parents. Here's the mummy. So what does he do? He's like, I gotta help mom and dad. Sneaks up behind the mummy and doesn't know what else to do, but grabs one of the bandages, starts unrolling him, pulling the bandages. Now, because this particular mummy, this Aman Tut, was buried and bandaged alive and not embalmed, what his body was now is turned to dust and only being held together by the bandages. So as he unrolls the bandages, Aman Tut then turns to a pile of dust. And that's the end of the story. It's a living mummy story, so it's cool anyway. So here we got more cool ads. And then the last story is the creation. So again, another Frankenstein monster story. So here we have, in more modern times, you have this doctor who is just obsessed with the works of Mary Shelley and the Prometheus, the Frankenstein story, right? And so he's trying to replicate very similar type experiments. So he's got an assistant who he's been working with who is just absolutely in horror of what he's actually trying to do. So it's all just like the original Frankenstein story. So they got this, he has this other assistant who's kind of like this hunchback looking dude, and he goes out and he's getting dead bodies. And the actual assistant, he's just horrified. He goes, I'm leaving. I can't be part of this anymore. Dr. Dubrow, I'm going to report you to the authorities. You can't be doing stuff like this. So he winds up bursting out of there. And then, of course, Carl, who is the name of the hunchback assistant, the doctor says, you need to go. You know what needs to be done, right? So Carl actually goes and follows the assistant off into the night and kills him. Does he take something with him? Good guess, right? So then we get back to the laboratory. Carl has gotten all sorts of body parts for the doctor, right? They've got the this new man, this new creature on the slab, adding the heart, adding the brain, bringing him to life. And after days of experimenting and whatnot, the creature comes to life. But all of a sudden, the creature starts talking, grabs the doctor. You, Dubrow, and Carl, ha! And it seemed death had forever denied me the chance for revenge. No, it can't be. That's right. It is Wilson, the assistant who ran off, who he had Carl kill. That's the brain who he grabbed. So now Wilson is actually in this new creation. Wilson is very functional of wit, and it's like, I know you guys killed me, so guess who's dying now? So now Wilson, who is this new Frankenstein sort of monster creature, is going to get his revenge and kill the doctor and Carl. So that is the end of that story. So again, if you want to look at back issues of Eerie, there you go. Flash Gordon comic strips. So there you have a little look at Eerie number 30 from 1970. This is a really good issue, actually. Yeah, a couple of clunker stories, but for the most part, this is a lot of fun. And this is a really good one because you get all sorts of classic monsters. You get the Frankenstein monster, sort of. You get the mummy. You get a werewolf. You get a vampire, and some other assorted things. So very cool cover. Basil Galgos. From 1970, issue number 30 of Eerie. Let us know what you think of this in the comments below, as well as if you have any other Eerie issues that are near and dear to you. We're going to be covering more of these in the weeks ahead. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us here once again on Comic Book Users. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. We've got more stuff coming up. Wild Bill and I are getting together this weekend, so we'll be doing more videos together, taping a whole bunch of stuff, so you'll have them all going into next week. So thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pete Pardo from Comic Book Users. We'll see you real soon here on another episode of Inside the Cover or Villain Spotlight or whatever it is we got coming, and more Warren magazines in the weeks to come. So thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.